Welcome to St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city, where cobblestone streets, centuries-old buildings, and coastal charm all meet.
That's right, Bruce. Founded in 1565 by a Spanish explorer, this magical city has over 450 years of history. Today, we are diving into its culture, legends, and seaside vibe.
We're starting on St. George Street, the vibrant heart of old St. Augustine. It's pedestrian only, so you can walk freely past charming shops, street musicians, and hidden courtyards, and the oldest schoolhouse in the United States.
There's something for everyone. Handmade soaps, antique books, Cuban coffee, and don't miss the cinnamon sugar roasted pecans.
And if you're into the spooky side of things, you'll probably run into a ghost tour or hear a story or two whispered from the past.
Here we are at St. Augustine Lighthouse, one of the city's most iconic and haunted spots.
Legend have it that several spirits roam the lighthouse, including 2 young girls. People report hearing footsteps, laughter, and seeing unusual shadows, even in broad daylight.
But ghost stories aside, the 360-degree view from the top is stunning. Yes, you can actually climb to the top of the lighthouse. You can see the ocean, the intra-coastal waterway, and the historical district all at once.
And the museums here? Well, it's filled with shipwreck treasures, maritime history, and even a real working archaeological lab.
This might look like a palace, but it's actually Flagler College, originally built as the Ponce de Leon Hotel in 1888 by Henry Flagler, one of Florida's founding visionaries.
He spared no expense. The ceilings are covered in gold leaf. The chandeliers are Austrian crystal, and the stained glass windows were designed by Tiffany himself.
It's a working college today, but visitors can take guided tours and get a glimpse into the Gilded Age glamour that helped shape modern Florida.
No trip to St. Augustine is complete without some time spent by the sea. Just across the Bridge of Lions is St. Augustine Beach, perfect for lounging, surfing, or shell hunting.
And after that beach stroll, head to a local food shack for something delicious. We love the mahi tacos, corn fritters, and the key lime pie.
St. Augustine is all about blending history with fun, and the beach is just the cherry on top.
There's so much more to see, like the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park. Yes, the legendary one.
Or the oldest house museum, dating back to the 1700s, still standing strong with stories to tell.
And don't skip the St. Augustine Alligator Farm, where you will find not just gators, but exotic birds, lemurs, and even ziplining over the reptile enclosures. St. Augustine isn't just the oldest city in America. It might be one of the most enchanting.
From ghost stories and golden age architecture to beach days and seafood feasts, this city has something for every traveler, including the Cathedral Basilica of St. Augustine, which was constructed over a 4-year period between 1793 and 1797. This was during the Second Spanish period.
The cathedral is a significant structure that represents the oldest Roman Catholic parish in the United States. The placement of the church facing the Plaza de la Constitution follows the tradition of siting religious government and commercial functions around a central plaza.
This is in accordance with the 1573 laws of the Indies for Spanish colonial town planning. Now the basilica is designated as a National Historic Landmark by the United States Department of the Interior.
We learn that many flags have flown over St. Augustine. Here is a brief history of the flags of St. Augustine.
No one can say for sure what flag flew from the mast of Juan Ponce de Leon's ships as he explored the coast of northeast Florida in the spring of 1513.
But scholars presume that Ponce represented the Spanish Empire with the banner with the red lion of the Kingdom of Leon, quartered with the gold castle of the Kingdom of Castillo.
It all began in 1565 when Don Pedro Menendez de Aviles arrived under the Spanish cross of Burgundy, the blood-red on white flag of Spain. He founded St. Augustine, the oldest European city in what would become the United States. Now this is 42 years before Jamestown, Virginia, and over a half-century before Plymouth Rock in Massachusetts. Under that crimson cross, the Spanish built forts, churches, and homes, and defended them fiercely from pirates and other invaders.
It flew for nearly 200 years until a quiet treaty far away in Europe changed everything. In 1763, after the 7 Years' War, Spanish ceded Florida to Britain. The Union Jack rose above the coquina walls of Castillo de San Marcos. The British renamed streets, invited settlers, and cultivated plantations. Some loyalists even fled south from the American colonies to avoid the revolution.
But nothing lasts forever, especially empires. Spain returned in 1784 when Britain gave Florida back after the American Revolution. St. Augustine welcomed its old masters, though many new faces had arrived. For nearly 40 years, the Spanish flag flew again, but this time the world was changing. The United States was growing and looking southward.
In 1845, Florida officially became part of the United States. The Stars and Stripes took its place atop government buildings, forts, and schools. America brought English law, new settlers, and a promise of expansion.
But with it came conflict. When the Civil War broke out, Florida joined the Confederacy. For a brief time, the Confederate stars and bars flew over St. Augustine. Some townspeople cheered, others worried.
But the war didn't wait for debate. Union troops retook the city earlier in the war. The American flags returned and stayed. Soldiers marched through the cobbled streets, and the city became a garrison town. After the war, St. Augustine entered a new era. It was shaped by all the ones before it.
And what of these? The delicate French fleur-de-lis and the green Portuguese cross. Though they never ruled here, both the French and the Portuguese tried to lay claim to this land in the 16th century. The French were defeated at Fort Caroline, just up the coast. The Portuguese explored, mapped, and then vanished. These flags remind us of near misses and how easily history could have gone another way.
This is the state seal of Florida's current flag. It was adopted in the late 1800s, a nod to the Spanish cross of Burgundy, perhaps, but it flies beside the American flag now, a symbol of identity, history, and all the voices that have shaped this city. St. Augustine is not just a city, she is a living tapestry, and every flag that flew here left a thread in that tapestry.
Nestled along the Atlantic coast of Florida is a fortress that has stood the test of time, weathered sieges, and witnessed centuries of change. It's a place where Spanish conquistadors, British redcoats, American troops, and Native American prisoners have all walked the same coquina stone floors. This place is more than just old stone walls. It's a storybook of colonial ambition, military innovation, dramatic battles, and yes, even ghost stories.
So grab your walking shoes, because we are going to dive deep into this 17th century marvel and uncover secrets hidden in the stones.
Let's rewind to the year 1668. The Spanish settlement of St. Augustine was attacked by the English pirate Robert Cyril, who burned the town and destroyed its wooden fort.
After that, the Spanish crown finally said enough is enough and authorized a massive stone fortress to defend the colony and the Spanish claim on Florida.
That's when construction began in 1672. It took 23 years to complete, and remarkably, it still stands today, almost entirely intact. This fort isn't made from granite or brick. It's built from coquina, a rare limestone formed from seashell fragments. At first glance, it looks porous and fragile.
But here's the genius part. Coquina is shock absorbent. When cannonballs hit it, they didn't shatter the wall, they just sank in.
During the British siege of 1740, the fort was bombarded for 27 consecutive days, and it barely took any damage.
It was basically the Cavalier vest of the 18th century.
The Castillo was designed in the Star Fort style, which gave defenders a 360-degree field of fire. Every wall was covered by another. No blind spots for attackers to hide.
There are 4 bastions, each named after a religious figure: St. Pedro, St. Augustine, St. Carlos, and St. Pablo.
The fort originally had over 70 cannons. You can still see some on display. Massive iron guns with reach across Matanzas Bay. Sometimes a cannon would explode. Some 16th century cannons explode due to a combination of factors, including poor quality control in their manufacture, the use of unreliable gunpowder, and inadequate understanding of the mechanics of cannons. Additionally, improper loading procedures, including the placement of too much gunpowder or mistakes in the ignition process, could lead to catastrophic failures.
Imagine watching British ships sail into the bay knowing your next move could change history.
This fort changed hands more than once. After Spain lost Florida to the British in 1763, the Union Jack flew over the Castillo for the next 20 years.
When Spain regained Florida in 1784, they resumed control until 1821, when the United States acquired the territory.
That's right. It became known as Fort Marion, named after Revolutionary War hero Francis Marion, and remained a military post until 1900. It was still Fort Marion when President Coolidge designated the site a national monument in 1924. It would continue to hold this name until 1942, when Congress voted to restore the original Spanish name, Castillo de San Marcos.
Let's talk about some lesser-known history. after the U.S. took over, the Castillo was used as a prison.
Native American prisoners, Seminoles, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and Apaches, including some of Geronimo's people, were held here in the 1800s.
They were stripped of their freedom and held far from home. Some even created carvings in the walls that are still visible today.
It's a somber chapter, but an important one. These walls don't just echo gunfire, they hold memories.
Now for something a little more mysterious.
Legend says a Spanish colonel named Don Manuel de Montenegro had a mistress who disappeared, and years later her remains were found sealed inside the walls.
That's not in the park brochures.
Visitors and rangers have reported flickering lights, strange cold spots, and even hearing footsteps in empty rooms.
Believe it or not, Castillo de San Marcos has made its way into several lists of most haunted places in the United States.
The Castillo is open almost every day, and the National Park Service offers guided tours, self-guided maps, and even historical reenactments.
You might even catch a live cannon fire demonstration by costumed rangers. Trust us, it's loud and unforgettable.
Bring water, wear sunscreen, and plan to spend at least 1 to 2 hours exploring. The view from the top is well worth the climb.
And don't forget the museum exhibits inside the rooms. There's everything from colonial maps to old muskets and the prisoner records.
Walking through the Castillo feels like stepping into another world, one filled with conflict, courage, and complexity.
It reminds us that history isn't just something in books. It's under our feet, echoing in the wind and carved into stone.
So, if you're visiting Florida, don't just hit the beaches. Take a journey into the past at Castillo de San Marcos and St. Augustine. They are national treasures and symbols of resilience and a place where history truly comes alive.
Thanks for joining us on this historical adventure.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more travel history. And if you wish to support our channel, you can buy us a cup of coffee by using the link in the description below. See you in our next adventure.